Good afternoon, everybody. This is the news with b.c.begley. I am your host, and it's Tuesday, November the 4th, 2025. It was kind of a slow news day today, I'm not going to lie. It might be a shorter show than usual, but I did my best. So with that said, let's go right into the top news stories for today. Former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney died on Monday at the age of 84 from complications of pneumonia and heart disease, his family announced. Remembered by loved ones as a man of courage, honor, and devotion to family and country, Cheney was praised for his lifelong service. Born in Lincoln, Nebraska in 1941, his early years included academic struggles, blue-collar work, and 2 DUI arrests. He later turned his life around, earning degrees from the University of Wyoming and the University of Wisconsin, marrying his high school sweetheart Lynn, and raising 2 daughters, NPR has reported. Despite avoiding military service during Vietnam, Cheney became one of the most powerful figures in American politics, notably helping lead the United States into the Iraq War. The Vatican has ruled that Mary should not be called the co-redeemer of the world, affirming that Jesus alone saved humanity. The decree, approved by Pope Leo, ends decades of theological debate within the Catholic Church about Mary's role in redemption. The document warns that the title, co-redemptrix, could cause confusion about the core Christian beliefs. While acknowledging Mary's vital role as the mother of Jesus and an intermediary between God and humanity, the Vatican emphasized that she did not share in Christ's redemptive power, Reuters has reported. The decision aligns with the views of Pope Francis and Benedict XVI, who both opposed the title, despite earlier support from Pope John Paul II. The Trump administration informed a Rhode Island federal judge that it will use $4.65 billion in contingency funds to pay only 50% of November SNAP benefits amid the ongoing government shutdown. The move affects about 42 million low-income Americans who rely on food stamps. The administration rejected the judge's suggestion to make full payments using additional funds from the Child Nutrition Program. Judge Jack McConnell had previously ruled that the government could not stop SNAP payments during the shutdown, CNBC reported. Advocacy group Democracy Forward and state leaders, including Massachusetts' governor, criticized the decision, arguing that the administration could and should fully fund the benefits to prevent hunger among American families. Election Day 2025 is underway in New York City, where Democrat Zohran Mamdani, Independent Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa are locked in a tight mayoral race. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. local time across all 5 boroughs, following record early voting turnout. Mamdani, a 34-year-old Queens Assemblyman, leads most polls and could become the city's first Muslim mayor and second youngest in history. President Donald Trump has intervened in the race, urging voters to back Cuomo as the best candidate to defeat Mamdani, though Cuomo downplayed the endorsement, CBS News has reported. Sliwa, meanwhile, criticized both opponents, accusing Cuomo of policies that worsened crime and vowing to move the city forward, not backward. Virginia is set to swear in its first female governor, with Democrat Abigail Spanberger leading Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earle-Sears in polls and outspending her 7-1. Spanberger has earned endorsements from the Virginia Police Benevolent Association and former President Barack Obama, while Earle-Sears has backing from the Virginia Beach Police Benevolent Association, 50 individual sheriffs, and support from President Donald Trump. The candidates clashed in a single debate covering issues including education and transgender student policies, with Spanberger emphasizing local decision-making and school safety. Earle-Sears criticized Spanberger for past education votes and pledged stricter policies on student privacy and sports participation, KATU2 has reported. The closely watched race highlights the state's focus on law enforcement, education, and social policy as Election Day approaches. New Jersey's closely watched gubernatorial race is between Democrat Representative Mikey Sherrill and Republican businessman Jack Ciattarelli, with polls showing a tight contest. Cheryl, leveraging early voting momentum and support from former U.S. President Barack Obama, has tied Ciccarelli to Trump and emphasized affordability and utility cost, promising a state of emergency on electricity rates if elected. Ciccarelli, endorsed by Trump, has leaned into MAGA themes and focused on rolling back green energy initiatives while promoting nuclear and solar power. The race is seen as a test of President Trump's popularity in the state, where he made gains in the 2024 election, particularly in diverse areas like Passaic County, MSNBC has reported. With both candidates highlighting affordability, the outcome may hinge on turnout among Trump supporters and independent voters in a historically competitive state. On the eve of the New York City's mayoral election, President Donald Trump threatened to withhold federal funds if Democrat Zohran Mamdani wins, calling him a, quote, communist, and urging voters to back independent Andrew Cuomo or the Republican Curtis Sliwa instead. The White House has already clashed with New York over congestion pricing and withheld $18 billion for a tunnel project during the government shutdown, with a judge ordering the reversal of $34 million in counterterrorism funding rescinded by the administration. Cuomo, running as an independent, amplified President Trump's message, while Mamdani dismissed it as a political threat and emphasized that federal funds legally belong to New York City, The Guardian has reported. Recent polls show Mamdani maintaining a double-digit lead with 41% of support compared to Cuomo's 34% and Sliwa's 24%. The U.S. has circulated a draft UN Security Council resolution proposing an international force in Gaza for at least 2 years, with the possibility of extensions through 2027. The International Security Force would be an enforcement, not peacekeeping mission, tasked with securing the borders, protecting civilians, and humanitarian corridors, training a new Palestinian police force, and demilitarizing Gaza, including disarming Hamas if necessary. The draft envisions a Gaza, quote, Board of Peace, chaired by President Donald Trump, overseeing a Palestinian technocratic committee to manage civil administration and reconstruction until reforms are completed. Countries including Indonesia, Azerbaijan, Egypt, and Turkey have expressed willingness to contribute troops, with operations coordinated closely with Israel and Egypt, Axios has reported. Aid would be delivered through the Board of Peace in partnership with organizations like the United Nations, Red Cross, and the Red Crescent, with strict oversight to prevent misuse or diversion. A bipartisan group of House moderates unveiled a proposal on Monday to extend Affordable Care Act tax credits for 2 years, aiming to break the stalemate that has kept the government shut down for over a month. The plan would phase out eligibility for households earning $200,000 to $400,000, introduce income verification, strengthen fraud prevention, and increase transparency on the value of tax credits. Lawmakers behind the plan, including Representatives Don Bacon, Tom Suozzi, Jeff Hurd, and Josh Gothmeier, framed it as a fair, reasonable path forward that demonstrates compromise is possible. Some Democrats and Republicans are openly frustrated with their party's leadership's refusal to negotiate, particularly on the stopgap spending measures and the ACA credits, Axios has reported. House leadership has not dismissed the ideas, and GOP officials indicated that they were already considering measures like income caps and verification. Okay, here's a look at the live weather radar, and now this is from the National Weather Service, and now let's go into the National Weather Forecast for today. More unsettled weather will affect the Northwest and Northern California, with increasing chances of heavy rain and strong coastal winds from late Tuesday into Wednesday. A west-to-east flow pattern will keep much of the United States warmer than average, while wet conditions in the Northwest and dry, breezy weather across the plains. A strong Pacific storm will bring an atmospheric river, enhancing rain and mountain snow in the Northwest and the Northern Rockies. Meanwhile, downslope winds will lead to fire risks in parts of Wyoming, Nebraska, and Colorado, where record highs are possible. Light showers and some mountain snow will accompany a passing system across the Great Lakes and the Northeast through midweek. A 66-year-old worker, Octave Stroisi, died after being trapped for nearly 12 hours when part of Rome's medieval Torre dei Conti collapsed. He was conscious during the rescue, but his heart stopped in the ambulance and doctors were unable to save him. Stroisi, a Romanian national, had been carrying out conservation work on the abandoned 13th century tower near the Roman Forum. Rescue efforts were complicated by the tower's instability, with firefighters using drones and protective measures to reach him safely, the BBC reported. Italian authorities have opened an investigation, and officials, including the mayor and the culture minister, visited the scene to oversee the response. An avalanche on Monday struck a base camp on Mount Yalungri in Nepal, killing 5 foreign climbers and 2 Nepali guides. 5 other foreigners were injured, though their identities and nationalities have not yet been released. Rescue efforts were hampered by bad weather, preventing a helicopter from reaching the site, with authorities planning another attempt at dawn. The United States State Department said it is monitoring the situation and ready to provide consular assistance, Fox News has reported. Mount Yalungri, an 18,370-foot peak, is considered suitable for beginner climbers, and Nepal is home to 8 of the world's 14 tallest mountains, including Everest. Anthony Williams, who is 32 years old and from Peterborough, has been charged with 10 counts of attempted murder following a mass stabbing on a train in the United Kingdom. He was arrested at Huntingdon Station on Saturday evening after multiple people were injured, and he also faces charges of actual bodily harm and possession of a bladed article. Williams is linked to a previous incident on November the 1st at Pontoon Dock Tube Station, where he faces additional charges. 11 people were treated in a hospital, and 2 are in critical condition, ABC News has reported. Authorities say there is no indication that the attack was terrorist-related, and the suspect was apprehended within 8 minutes of the first emergency call. Typhoon Kalmegi has killed at least 26 people in the Philippines, mostly due to flooding across the central provinces. Floodwaters trapped residents on rooftops and submerged vehicles, while power outages were reported in several affected areas. Separately, 6 people died when a Philippine Air Force helicopter crashed while delivering aid to storm-hit provinces, the Associated Press has reported. The typhoon, with winds up to 81 miles per hour and gusts up to 112 miles per hour, was forecasted to move into the South China Sea. Authorities continue to verify casualty details as rescue and relief operations continue. A Chinese court has sentenced 5 senior members of the notorious Bai family mafia to death, part of a wider conviction of 21 family members and associates for fraud, homicide, injury, and other crimes. The Bais ran a criminal empire that evolved from casinos and red light districts into massive cyber scam operations exploiting trafficked workers, many of them Chinese. Authorities say their networks ran 41 compounds and generated more than $4.1 billion and caused multiple deaths, suicides, and severe injuries amid documented abuse and torture. Among those condemned to death were the mafia boss and his son, who were also convicted of trafficking and methamphetamine offenses, the BBC has reported. The harsh penalties are part of a broader Chinese campaign targeting Southeast Asian scam syndicates and follow Beijing's pressure on Myanmar and recent extraditions of suspected warlords. 13 suspected drug cartel members were killed on Monday in a shootout with authorities in Sinaloa, Mexico, while 4 others were arrested and 9 kidnap victims were rescued. The clash began when security forces on patrol were attacked by gunmen hiding under a bridge. Authorities seized 7 vehicles, high-powered weapons, and tactical gear following the firefight. Sinaloa has been engulfed in a violent internal war within a major drug cartel since the July 2024 capture of Ishmael El Mayo Zambada, pitting his loyalists against the Chapitos, which are the sons of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, CBS News has reported. The conflict has included extreme torture methods and public displays of bodies, with over 1,700 killed and nearly 2,000 missing amid the ongoing factional violence. Authorities in Tanzania are facing international scrutiny over deadly crackdowns on post-election protest, with the main opposition party claiming that security forces have secretly disposed of hundreds of bodies. Protests erupted after the October 29th election, which President Hassan won with over 97% of the vote amid low turnout and barred opposition candidates. Security forces have used live bullets and tear gas, enforcing a nationwide curfew, and Human Rights Watch condemned the use of lethal force. Reports from the United Kingdom, Norway, Canada, the Catholic Church, and local legal groups suggest that over 1,000 people may have been killed, particularly in politically active regions, the Associated Press has reported. The opposition party alleged that many of the victims, including at least 400, are being secretly dumped by authorities to conceal the scale of the killings. Peru has severed diplomatic ties with Mexico after Mexico granted asylum to former Peruvian Prime Minister Betsy Chavez, who is under investigation for rebellion linked to a failed 2022 coup attempt by the ex-president Pedro Castillo. Peru's government called Mexico's action, quote, an unfriendly act, and accused it of repeated interference in domestic affairs. Chavez, accused of aiding Castillo's attempt to dissolve Congress, faces up to 25 years in prison. Mexico defended its decision, citing compliance with international law and denying any intervention in Peru's internal matters, the AP has reported. Tensions are further fueled by Mexico's support for Castillo, whose family resides there and whose government has labeled his ouster a coup. Central Vietnam is grappling with severe floods and landslides that have killed at least 37 people, displaced tens of thousands, and left many areas without power or communication. Heavy rains in late October inundated villages, swept away homes, and blocked major highways, while rivers in Ho City reached dangerous levels. Rescuers and aid workers have delivered food, water, medicine, and shelter, and are helping restore infrastructure and support farmers. Meanwhile, Typhoon Kalmegi is forecast to strengthen and hit Vietnam's central coast later this week, threatening further flooding with winds of up to 103 miles per hour, the Associated Press has reported. The country so far has faced multiple storms this year, including Ragasa and Matmo, which together caused more than 85 deaths or missing persons and $1.36 billion in damage. Today is November the 4th, 2025, and on this day in history, in the year 1992, Howard Carter discovered the entry to the tomb of the Egyptian pharaoh king Tut at Luxor. In the year 1995, Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister of Israel, was assassinated after a peace rally in Tel Aviv. And in the year 2008, Barack Obama was elected the first African American president of the United States. November the 4th is also National Candy Day. Alright, it's 18 past the hour and we'll do a quick market update. The Nasdaq is down 1.57%, gold is down 0.98%, oil is down 0.58%, Bitcoin is down 5.04%. Ouch, that's bad. The Dow Jones is down 0.34%, and the S&P 500 is also down 0.73%. So all of the markets are down. We're down across the board today. All right, let's go into the last block of news for today. The Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office is investigating the disappearance of 9-year-old Melody Buzzard, last seen with her mother Ashley Buzzard on October the 9th. Surveillance footage shows the pair crossing the Colorado-Utah border in a rented 2024 white Chevy Malibu, the last confirmed sighting of Melody. She was reported missing by her school on October the 14th, having not been seen since August, and authorities say her mother has been uncooperative. Investigators believe the pair may have traveled as far as Nebraska, possibly using swapped license plates to avoid detection, CBS News has reported. The Malibu has since been returned to the rental company, and law enforcement, including the FBI, has executed multiple search warrants in the case. Multiple polling places in northern New Jersey temporarily were closed on Tuesday morning after receiving emailed bomb threats, later deemed not credible. forcing some voters to cast ballots at alternate locations. Authorities confirmed that the emails contained false claims of bomb threats, and law enforcement found no credible danger. Polling sites affected spanned Bergen, Essex, Mercer, Middlesex, Monmouth, Ocean, and Passaic counties. Officials, including the lieutenant governor, emphasized voter and poll worker safety in coordination with state and federal partners, ABC News has reported. Democratic gubernatorial candidate Mikey Sherrill called the threats an attempt to suppress voting, but encouraged residents to participate. Jake Harrow, 32 years old, was sentenced on Monday to 25 years to life in prison for murdering his 7-month-old son Emmanuel and falsely claiming that the infant had been kidnapped. He also received an additional 6-year sentence for a prior child abuse case to be served consecutively. Harrow pleaded guilty to murder, child endangerment, and filing a false police report, while his wife Rebecca Harrow faces similar charges and has pleaded not guilty. Emmanuel was reported kidnapped from a Big 5 sporting goods parking lot on August the 14th, but authorities determined that the claim was false and his remains have not yet been found, NBC News has reported. The earlier abuse case involved severe injuries to a child from Harrow's previous marriage, including a partial skull fracture and brain hemorrhage. Jury selection is set to begin Monday for Sean Dunn, a former DOJ paralegal charged with misdemeanor assault for throwing a Subway sandwich at a federal agent in August during a law enforcement surge in Washington, D.C. Dunn was initially facing felony assault, but a federal grand jury declined to indict on that count. Prosecutors and defense attorneys are disputing jury instructions, particularly the elements required to prove misdemeanor assault, though the judge will resolve these issues before the trial starts. Dunn's lawyers argue he is being, quote, vindictively and selectively prosecuted, citing a SWAT team raid on his apartment despite his offer to surrender, and pointed to public comments and videos by officials they claim were taunting, WTOP News has reported. Following his arrest, Dunn was fired from the Justice Department, and the case has drawn attention due to its unusual circumstances and publicized media coverage. SpaceX successfully launched its Bandwagon 4 rideshare mission to low Earth orbit, carrying an NVIDIA-backed data center demo, a vast commercial space station test bed, and an AI-powered weather satellite. Liftoff occurred at 1:09 a.m. Eastern Standard Time from Cape Canaveral's Pad 40, with a 95% chance of favorable weather. The mission used Falcon 9 booster B-1091, previously flown for Amazon's Project Kuiper, which landed safely at Landing Zone 2 less than 8 minutes after launch. This is expected to be the last booster recovery at LZ-2, as SpaceX transitions into a new landing zone at Pad 40, Spaceflight Now has reported. Bandwagon 4 marks the 4th mid-inclination rideshare flight and the 18th mission in SpaceX's small satellite program, which also includes the Transporter series. Grubhub has partnered with startup Avride to pilot delivery robots on the streets of Jersey City, following the company's earlier deployment of 100 Avride robots on college campuses across North America. At Ohio State University, Avride's fleet completes over 6,000 orders weekly, demonstrating reliable autonomous delivery at scale. Navigating an urban environment presents new challenges, including mixed traffic, pedestrians, cyclists, narrow sidewalks, and construction, which Avride addresses with high-resolution maps and adaptive routing. The company is also educating the public on safely interacting with the robots, the Robot Report has reported. Grubhub has parent company Wander sees this pilot as a step toward faster, more efficient delivery, combining Grubhub's marketplace, Wander's culinary offerings, and Avride's robotics technology. Pizza Hut may be up for sale, as Yum Brands announced a formal review of strategic options for the struggling pizza chain. Despite a global presence of nearly 20,000 stores in over 100 countries and international sales growth of 2% in the first 9 months of this year, U.S. sales, which account for nearly half of the revenue, fell 7%. Challenges include large, outdated dine-in locations and shifting consumer preferences toward fast pickup and delivery, compounded by major franchise filings for bankruptcy back in 2020. Yum CEO Chris Turner said exploring options outside the company could better unlock Pizza Hut's full value, The Hill has reported. Shares of Yum Brands rose nearly 7% in early trading following the announcement. Starbucks announced it will sell a controlling stake in its China operations to investment firm Boyu Capital for $4 billion, forming a joint venture in which Boyu holds up to 60% and Starbucks retains 40%. Starbucks will continue to own and license its brand and intellectual property to the new entity. The total value of Starbucks' China business is expected to exceed $13 billion, including its retained stake, CNN has reported. The divestment comes as Starbucks' market share in China has dropped sharply, from 34% in 2019 to 14% last year, amid increased competition from local coffee chains and changing consumer habits during the economic slowdown. This deal represents one of the most valuable recent divestments of a China unit by a global consumer company. The U.S. military is close to fielding 2 new satellite jamming systems, L3 Harris's Meadowlands and Remote Modular Terminals, which, along with an upgraded counter-communication system, will give the Pentagon 3 openly acknowledged counter-space jammers. Meadowlands is in the final training and exercises and is expected to be fielded this fiscal year, while the remote modular terminals are being deployed overseas in a limited early use phase and can be operated remotely. The systems are intended to temporarily disrupt Chinese and Russian intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance satellites that the U.S. officials say pose growing threats to forces, and Bloomberg has reported that the Pentagon plans to buy dozens of these units. The Space Force emphasizes the jammers are defensive and narrowly targeted, and is standing up a Space Electromagnetic Tactical Operations Center to coordinate and detect electromagnetic interference against U.S. satellites. Hey everybody, real quick, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on all of our news stories and our live show. And that is all of the news that I have for you today. Like I said, it was kind of a slow news day today, so it was kind of a shorter show. But I hope all of you have enjoyed it, and I will see everybody tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time for another episode of The News with BC, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.